invite you to take your eyes, just silently with your eyes, look around at who's around you. Notice who's with you today. See who's near. Make plans to be talking later. For those who don't know, I'm the Reverend Kevin Tarsa, privileged to serve this community, this congregation.
Oh, you're welcome, you're welcome.
Thanks, Christy. So as we sing about not being afraid of some change, and as we prepare to talk about transformation as a value, I'm thoughtful about how much has changed since and because we started carrying these electronic gizmos with us. Those of us of a certain age, do you remember when this was a futuristic possibility that might happen in 100 or 200 or 300 years? Seeing somebody on the phone as you're talking to them? So one of the new things is that remembering that once in a while it's okay to silence these. It's okay to turn them off. So I invite you, if you haven't already, to silence your device. And I invite all of us to prepare to enter the time, maybe with a deep breath or two. I don't know what your week has been like or your day, but maybe it needs another breath. And given all that's going on, I think we need another one. Oh, there we go. I'm pleased to say that Mark Grove will offer our land acknowledgement this morning, followed by Susan Merrill, who will offer words to light our chalice, this symbol of our faith tradition, a flame in a cup, this tradition that asks us to remain open to change and to being changed ourselves. Mark.
Good morning. Bit of a rowdy crowd out there this morning. So by placing this basket of black oak acorns on our altar, we acknowledge the Nisenan people are still here among us today, though nearly invisible after generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. We understand we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, never given up. And original tribal families have yet to recover from the genocide of their people. We commit ourselves to supporting the Nisenan in their efforts to stabilize their people and restore their tribal sovereignty. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, I'm going to read the chalice lighting. May This Flame by Betts Weinecke. May this flame, symbol of our transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, sustain our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within us and around us.
Thank you, Mark and Susan. So our wisdom for all ages, from all ages really, comes from the Sufi tradition. And in this form, I've based it on the telling by Cynthia Borgelt. So once upon a time, which means it could be any time, even now, in a not so far away land, there was a wonderful community of acorns, nestled at the foot of a grand old oak tree. Now, since the members of this community were modern, contemporary, conscientious, fully westernized acorns, they went about their business and their lives with purposeful energy. And since they were baby boomer acorns, they engaged in a lot of self-help courses. There were seminars called Getting All You Can Out of Your Shell. There were powerful woundedness and recovery groups for acorns who'd been bruised in their original fall from the tree. The members of the community assembled shell repair kits to give out at the local open air market on Saturday mornings. There were spas for oiling and polishing your shells, and lessons for young acorns on how to adjust their caps and how to reattach their caps, because they do tend to come off at some point. And there were many, many and various acornopathic therapies to enhance acorn longevity and well-being. Well, one day, in the midst of this bustling community, there suddenly appeared a naughty little stranger, apparently dropped out of the blue by a passing bird. This acorn had no cap and was rather smudged and dirty, making an immediate negative impression on their fellow acorns. And then crouched beneath this spreading oak tree, this newly arrived and unfamiliar and rather rough-looking acorn stammered out a wild tale. Pointing upward at the tree, this grand and sheltering tree, the acorn said, "We are that." Delusional thinking, obviously, the other acorns concluded. Impossible. But one of them was curious enough to engage this new acorn in a bit more conversation. So tell us, how would we acorns become that tree? Well, the acorn said, scratching its face and then pointing downward, "I'm not entirely sure, but it has something to do with going into the ground and cracking open the shell." "No, insane," the other acorns responded. "Terrible, gruesome, totally morbid. Why, if we did that, we wouldn't be acorns anymore." And so ends, or rather, so begins the tale. I'm looking around for young ones. We will sing either way. We would be no young ones today, except for our youngest here. Who's our youngest here? Cypress. No, but Cypress is busy working with the audio visual. We will still sing to our young ones to keep that idea in our hearts and minds. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of the mountains. Today is one of those days we wish we were in the mountains, preferably some high snowy ones. But nonetheless, we are grateful to be here together in person or online. I'm Cheryl Morris, and Carol Nimick and I are your worship associates this morning. You may have noticed, the bowl of water and stones as you came in, with Carol Ritchie from the lay pastoral care team present. Stones placed in the bowl represent joys and sorrows that we carry individually, but are shared in community. You're welcome to add a stone at any time, during or after the service. Wasn't that a great story from Reverend Cav? It perfectly sets the stage for our exploration of one of the UU values identified on that pinwheel over there, transformation. Transformation, such a huge word, rather daunting to contemplate. As Carol, Kevin, and I talked about it, I said, I don't think I personally have ever experienced a transformation, rather more of an evolution. Then, in reading about the proposed values, I discovered that the original term suggested was, in fact, evolution, not transformation. I imagine it took much discussion and maybe a subcommittee or two to decide to change it. I also don't know why the color purple was selected to accompany this value. Googling purple revealed many possible qualities associated with this color, some suitable for our purposes and others not. I imagine that required at least one more subcommittee. The lens we are going to use to approach such a big subject this morning is that of thresholds. Somehow it seems more manageable and easier to apply to our daily lives. We'll be talking about this further, but I invite you right now to start thinking about what thresholds you have crossed or those that lie ahead. Whatever brought you to our threshold or keeps you crossing the threshold into this community, you are so welcome here.
Thank you to Gail Johnson-Vaughn and John Vaughn and Robin Hart for creating our wheel on the wall that will serve us all summer long. As many of you know, we Unitarian Universalists are trying on some new language, some new words to communicate to ourselves and to others what we care about and what we'll do because of that care. We're seeing what it feels like to claim 6 key values, each centered in action and each an expression of love. About transformation, what we're saying is, in the proposed language, we adapt to the changing world. We covenant, in other words, we promise to each other to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. A few Sundays ago, when we shared the language for all 6 values, Taylor Carey came up to me afterwards and asked if we could please not split the infinitive. A point well taken, because we will do well to remove any obstacles and distractions if we can, because the demands of committing to adapt to the changing world, and only adapting, I would suggest, when it's helpful and healthy, and a promise collectively together to transform and grow spiritually and ethically, those are really big and important asks and commitments. The proposed language goes on to frame these asks in a larger term context. Openness to change, it says, is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages. Never complete and never perfect. Dang it. Perfectionist. When I try these words and ideas on for size, about being never complete and never perfect, I feel both a heavy sigh at the never-ending part, maybe you do too, and I also feel a genuine, meaningful twinge of hope in kind of coming to terms with the truth of that. Never complete, never perfect. The idea of staying open to change and, in fact, of seeking to grow and transform is demanding and encouraging at the same time. As I named a few weeks ago, it's important to realize that, as counterintuitive as it sounds, the journey of growth and even transformation is at heart a journey of self-acceptance rather than a journey of self-improvement. Transformation is a journey of self-acceptance as opposed to self-improvement. It's realizing, however slowly and however reluctantly, some of us, that we are that. The cracking of our well-oiled and much-loved shells and the sending down of tentative roots is part of becoming most honestly, most fully who we are. Though it may feel utterly destructive at the time of so much we have come to know and love and believe about ourselves. Impossible, totally morbid. We are that. To support us in our mulling and our trying on this value of transformation, here are reflections from the hearts and minds and lives of Cheryl Morris and Carol Nimick, followed by an invitation to bring it all close in and to take it all to heart for a moment. Cheryl.
In the spirit of change, I don't have a script this morning. Woo, I do have a few notes. Yeah, I saw Lori Bell do it right here not very long ago. I saw Lindsay do it in a service a few months ago and thought that took great courage. So this may be somewhat more disjointed, but probably more spontaneous than what you're used to from me. So thinking about thresholds, past, present, future. For me, I got an image of myself where I am in my life right now, kind of on a high plateau. The ground feels stable and solid under me. And I'm not afraid to look back or look forward. Looking back, the greatest threshold of my entire life was when I did not seek. I was hurtled into it rather without warning. My husband died almost 4 years ago, and that was followed quickly by COVID. So it was like a 1-2 punch. Those first few months, honestly, are kind of a blur, and that's probably just as well. But through it all, I had a lot of support from friends. I brought back my meditation practice, which I'd been sort of dabbling with for many years, but I buckled down and got serious about it. And somewhere inside, I knew I'd come through. I wasn't quite sure how, but I knew I would. And there were, as you can imagine, or maybe you've experienced, many, 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 many thresholds, some small, some big. There were the really, really annoying ones, like a computer problem, or a car problem, or a problem with the sprinkler system, or all those kinds of things that were easy for him to deal with. The bigger threshold, of course, had to do with adjusting to establishing a whole new routine, actually, and thinking about my life going forward as a single person. As I moved along, there were also, I began to see many benefits that I was, any growth, any change, any new experiences, they were strictly up to me. They weren't going to come from outside, they were going to come from inside. And many of you know I started attending UU services during COVID on Zoom, and that soon became a very meaningful anchor point, believe it or not, even over Zoom. This community came through. I was remembering as I was thinking about what to say, that Hal Walker's song, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the video of the Hal Walker song, Will You Love? I don't know if that landed with you the way it landed with me, but there was first the heart-wrenching Will You Love, question, and I'm not sure where I come down on that one again in terms of a personal relationship. But actually, the line of his song that spoke to me the most, I think, was the last line, "I was changed into myself." And I think that's really a big part of what's happened to me, is that I've been kind of, layers have been stripped away, and I'm really down to as close as I know, maybe, to be the essence of myself. Looking forward, actually, what I see is old age, sickness, and death. And I'm not being morbid. The Buddhists in this congregation know that to be the first noble truth of Buddhism, that these are in store for all of us. And I'm beginning to see them up close and personal. I mean, it was always, I would see them in the generation ahead of me, right? And now I'm seeing it in my friends, and changes in myself that are not so welcome, but here they are. And there's also a freedom that goes with it. Oh yes, I was going to share a quote. You've probably heard it, from Woody Allen. "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens." And so that's kind of it. I think I'm not afraid of death as near as I can comprehend it for myself, which I'm not sure any of us really can. But it's the process of getting there. And what I would fear and dread would be pain, disability, loss of functioning, loss of independence. I think most older people kind of share this, that it's not so much the final ending, it's what happens on the way there. My Soul Matters group has met this summer, and last time, just for the fun of it, we looked at an older packet on curiosity, and we had a really great discussion about curiosity, trying to look at whatever comes, whatever we're dreading or fearing, with curiosity, instead of so much fear and worry and fretfulness. And I have to say, there are members of this congregation that are just really inspirational to me in showing the way, and how one can age not only gracefully, but with growth and development and continued change, perhaps even transformation. So those are my thoughts, and now you'll hear from Carol.
Good morning. So the transformative experience I'd like to share happened in May 10 years ago, when I happened to be in Yosemite. And without any premeditated reason, I walked into the ranger station. And there, within 5 minutes, I walked out with a permit to hike the 226 miles John Muir Trail from Yosemite Valley to Mount Whitney. I don't know what possessed me. It wasn't premeditated at all. But once I had that piece of paper in my hand, a fire just welled up in my belly. I mean, it was absolutely tangible fire. And I went home and I thought, oh gosh, now I better find some equipment. And I hadn't been backpacking for decades. I better learn how to dehydrate some food, study maps, learn how to get over 10, 12, 14,000 foot passes. What do you do with lightning? Crossing streams? Knew nothing of this. But every night before I went to bed, I had my nose in the maps and was reading accounts of any account I could of someone who'd walked this trail. So the day arrived for my journey to begin. And the thing that scared me, terrified me more than anything, was would I be alive the first morning of the trip? I was terrified of spending the night alone out by myself. I don't know what it was. I was sure a bear, something would get me. There was no question. And I remember hiking as hard and fast as I could, so that all I have to do is put up my tent and just go to bed. I didn't take my clothes off, I didn't brush my teeth. I just pulled the sleeping bag up over my head and prayed. And in the morning, I was still alive, as irrational as it is. And I had that fear every night, but it got less as the nights went on. But then there were the lightning storms, there were the hours of hiking through hailstorms, or then the creek that had to be crossed. There were endless things. Probably the storm I remember most was so severe that rocks were cascading down the side of the mountain and clanging and crashing. But I had one thing that I said to myself: I would always follow this fire in my belly. I would always listen. I didn't care if I finished the trail. That wasn't important to me. I didn't care about anything except that I listened to whatever this fire was that was driving me. So what happened in the end, when I look at it, is that I never started to go for a transformative experience. That was never in my mind. It was only in reflection, in looking back, that I realized how transformative it was. For one, I just learned to listen to my gut and listen to that fire and listen to what was living inside of me, that self-acceptance. Nothing was premeditated that I'm going to do this for these reasons. Another thing that I gained in that transformation was really becoming more aware, absolutely tuned in, because out on the trail there was uncharted territory, uncertainties galore, so many moving targets. And I felt as an outcome, I became so much more aware. And finally, I also feel like I developed much deeper feelings, because there were so many moments of being on the edge, on a cliff. Can I get across this talus slope? Can I do this or that? I think it was incredibly deepening for who I am, and gave me immeasurable confidence. So in closing, I just want to say I never started to go for a transformative experience, but in looking back, it was the process, it was the trip that changed me.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Carol. I don't know about you, but I'm guessing that sparked some thoughts, some memories, some trip plans, maybe. That's really helpful. Thank you. So to invite us into reflection on our own current transformative thresholds, a couple other metaphors to accompany the acorn and oak metaphor, metaphors that might serve you. And I'm realizing it'd be helpful for you to have a chance to stretch your bodies. So I'm going to keep talking, but I invite you to rise if it feels right to you and do a little stretching. Because I'm going to start with the metaphor of the caterpillar turning to goo. And I have to tell you, that's me at the moment. There's a whole lot of goo. Things dissolved, right? You may know this, that the caterpillar doesn't go from caterpillar to butterfly, it goes from caterpillar to goo. And then all those parts and pieces get reformed into the flying being that comes next. And then there's the tree metaphor, maybe a good chance to stretch, be a tree. The acorn that has to become not an acorn to be what it really is, that oak tree. And then there's the hatching chick metaphor, and you might want to sit down for this one. Because in a piece for the Church of the Larger Fellowship, this is the way people could participate in Unitarian Universalism, originally Unitarianism, in remote places where there are no UU congregations nearby. They used to send a packet in the mail. Now it's an online version, but in a piece from about 10 years ago, from the Church of the Larger Fellowship, the Reverend Ruth McKenzie, she drew on insight she had gained from a Mark Nepo reading to share that the process of hatching for a baby chick might look beautiful to us, but is actually a terrifying event for the chick. Right? I never quite thought of it that way, right? It looks lovely and life-affirming from the outside. She wrote, "In the moments before birth, the small hatchling has eaten all of its food, and its growing body presses against every curve and contour of the shell. There's no more room. There's no more food. The chick hatches because its body is painfully cramped inside the world of the egg, and it is starving. There is so much discomfort that the chick is driven to peck its way into whatever is on the other side of the world, whatever is on the other side of safety, because there's nothing else to do and still survive. The world literally breaks apart. The chick eats bits of its own shell, and its body squeezes through the emerging cracks. Hatching is not graceful," she writes. "There's wrestling and rolling around. There's crying and praying. There's exhaustion and power naps. There's stumbling and trying to hold the head up while getting feet underneath the body. Hatching is not graceful. It is beautiful to behold," she writes, "but I dare say the chick would not describe it that way. I think the chick would say, hatching is a necessity. As Mark Nepo wrote," she concludes, "everything it has relied on falls away. The chick is born. It doesn't die, but falls into the world." You may know that experience in your life of being held in, needing to move beyond the known and safety, having no idea what's on the other side, and yourself falling into the world that is to become yours. Whether we like it or not, Reverend Ruth adds, discomfort, feeling cramped, feeling soul hungry is the seed of transformation, calling us to peck away into whatever's on the other side of the safety we have known. So I invite us for a time to consider our own current thresholds, at the edge, perhaps, of transformation. So I invite you to let your body be in its most comfortable, easy, relaxed position, whatever that is for you. I invite you to gain access to your heart by starting with an awareness of your body, your entire body. What do you notice? What do you feel? What do you sense in your body? And then, as we've been doing, bringing your attention to your breathing, just noticing the in and the out. And if focusing on your breathing is not a good place for you, you might consider closing and opening your hands slowly. Notice that breathing, what it feels like all the way in and all the way out. from there, with no agenda, I invite you to listen for, to feel for, to be curious about what might be a current threshold or edge for you, where something is shifting or changing, or is about to, or is needing to change, whether you want it or not. Notice, listen, see what arises. If you wonder about what your current threshold might be. Maybe something in you is stirring, pressing outward, restless, wanting, longing to become something, or at least to move from where you are, even as it feels terribly frightening. Let whatever thought or image needs to arise, all on its own. No pressure, no real digging, no right answer. Let whatever can safely surface in this space surface. What threshold, what shift or need to shift has arrived without your asking and without your permission? Where is life pinching, feeling too confining or constrained, wanting to push outward even though it's on the other side of that push cannot be known? Where in your life are you starving, ready to break out, feeling a blend of both desperation and, against all odds, hope too? Or maybe for you right now, it's a feeling of being utterly gooey. The old you partly dissolved and fallen apart and messy and unfamiliar and a bit prone to spilling, it seems. And the newness of you stirring there already in the swirling ingredients, ready to be reassembled, reborn into you're not sure what. Or where in your life have you caught a glimpse or a twinge? Could it be true that you are so much more than you've realized for a long time? That you are that. That impossibly amazing and grand and sheltering possibility. Something you knew already, really. Something you sensed, felt without any words for it. What threshold, what deep shift or change, what edge are you facing or living into right now? And recognizing that, what hopes and what questions arise in you? Let the music and Toby's playing accompany your journey for a time. those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Yes, I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless seems so strange. Dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Yes, I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless seems so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless seems so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Yes, I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless seems so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Yes, I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Yes, I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. If you're willing, I'd invite you to call out the threshold that came to mind for you. If it feels safe enough, okay enough. What's the threshold that came to mind for you? I'll repeat it. Anyone? Self-care. Authenticity. Confidence, California AIDS ride. Walking into my 70s. Outside my comfort zone. And
Reinventing myself after my husband died and I just moved here a year ago.
Reinventing myself after my husband died and I just moved here a year ago. Transition. My sister's death.
Loss.
Love lost.
Finding a strong voice.
Finding a strong voice. Can we just for a moment honor all of this? Be witness to all of this? Some things named, and you had a chance at the beginning of the service to look around at who was near you. Just imagine the kinds of thresholds in the room. Can we honor it, witness it, bless that threshold? And I would invite you to find someone in your life. Maybe it's someone here, maybe it's someone elsewhere, to speak to that threshold with. Just name that this is what came up when you were here on Sunday morning. Start with the naming and maybe see where the conversation goes. As personal as all our own thresholds may feel, Reverend Karen Herring, who wrote about trusting change after helping groups of people walk through thresholds together, she says that change is a shared task, whether we're talking about our personal change or our collective change. She writes that we need the gifts of companioning when we're on these thresholds. It's our interdependence, our true interdependence, that makes it possible to trust change, she says. It's not being alone. When the words trying to articulate what matters to us you use and why and how claim that openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect, that we adapt to a changing world, that we promise to each other, or they suggest that we promise to each other, that we will collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. They are taking into account all those intertwined values and the centrality of love in this journey, reminding us that we do not do this on our own, even though some of us are super stubborn about thinking that our journey is really a personal journey, a solo effort. We gather, when we're doing this whole religion thing right, with genuine companions for the deep thresholds in our lives. Or more important, we gather, when we're doing this whole religion thing right, to help each other become the people who can companion us and our wider communities at the deep thresholds, the ones that feel like our own and the ones that feel like all of ours. May we be open and willing and hopeful. May we really compassionately, deeply lift each other up to the light of change, whatever's on the other side of safety and familiarity and comfort. We are open and we are willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift us up to the light of change. For we are open and we are willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up to the light
25% of our offering this month will be shared with Color Me Human, started by our own congregant and founder of Color Me Human, Tracy Pepper. Color Me Human's mission is to celebrate, educate, elevate, advocate, to create a safe and equitable world for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and the LGBTQ, community. Your giving is also vital to the support of our church and its workings in the community. If you wish all of your donation to go to Color Me Human, please put it in the white envelope in the basket. Thank you for your generosity, and here are some other ways of giving. We dedicate these gifts with the hope that everyone, all communities, and all people may feel their full humanity. Thank you for your generosity in support of these people. And we dedicate these offerings as well to the workings of our church.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Cheryl, for not only being worship associates and thinking through and planning and developing the service, but for sharing your own pieces today. So very appreciated. Toby, thanks for the music. You know, when you're a church musician, often you have these little short pieces you can play. And we say, we have a little more room in this service for a piece of music. What would you like to play? So Toby, thank you. And that was this choir from General Assembly this year, singing The Times They Are Changing. I love that arrangement. Cypress, thanks for being here so steadily. And Andy Dooley Miller and Bob Miller today on our audiovisual makes such a difference. Eileen, our steady chat host online. Shanti, another really thoughtful and beautiful setting. I love to see what comes in. As I've said before, I grew up in a Catholic church and my eyes like to wander over things in the room as I'm sitting there. Laura and Connie, thank you so much for greeting. Carol Ritchie, thank you so much for being at the Joys and Sorrows table today. It makes such a difference. So refreshments, since we've been coming back from pandemic time, we've been taking it really low key. If food shows up, if people show up to do it, we're good. I'm not sure there's any food today. Last I knew, it's very hot, but I invite you to take that to heart. Like bring in some edibles with you. It's a really simple, cool way to really support our being together, and then throwing in a hand maybe once a month to say, hey, I'll help with that food. So I invite you to do that. I'm not sure what's back there. Last I knew. Loaves and fishes. Renee brought some cookies. She said we can break them in half or thirds. So I come from a family of 8 kids. And one time we took a Snickers bar, like not the big ones, a Snickers bar, and cut it into 8 pieces. That was our dessert. And oh, there's food available? Oh, somebody did something. Look at that. It happened. It happened. And Cheryl Spalding and Renee were very ready to be with our young ones. So thank you for that. It makes such a difference. We're doing a UU 101, which is kind of our first, hey, somebody's new, come find out a little bit more about this tradition and us. And it's a great chance for people who've been here a while too, both to make connections and meet some new folks, but also to refresh and rethink some of that thinking. So we're gonna do that at noon after the service. Feel free to join us. And then we'll start a more in-depth series join us for the series of 5 Sundays where we dig in and really get to know each other well as know this tradition. We're having circle suppers, which are casual meetings in people's homes. We're calling for hosts, so sign up if you're willing to be one of those hosts for one of those small gatherings. And as always, keep checking the website or weekly email, the e-chalice, or the monthly newsletter for more information about what's going on. So I invite us just to take a breath, the way we started today. That was a lot. A lot of good. And that just sort of stirs up the soil, right? Where do you go with that now? Where do you go with the whole threshold thing? Karen Herring leads threshold groups, like through about a 10-week series of working together, walking together through your thresholds. That's one of the options that appeals to you, letting me know. Let's sing, just to put an amen really on our time together. First I, and then we. We'll get the key in.
So strange, it dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light.
I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, for I am
seems so strange
better change. For we are open, we are willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift us up to the light of change. We will extinguish this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, hoping that this hour together has
Fired our curiosity,
Strengthened our wills
sustained our courage,
and inspired us to seek what is good within and around us.
as we go forth, may each of us
carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
It turns out there are refreshments. If you're here, join us in the back. And otherwise, we'll see you next Sunday where we move to the value of equity. We'll see you then.